Karthik is going to talk about dream interpretations. I'm clearly fascinated about the subject. So, a little introduction about Karthik. My own experience with Karthik goes back to collaborating on the AstroSynergy event itself over the past 2-3 years, and it's been amazing. But Karthik is an astrologer and a Vedic aspirant and practitioner. His interest in Vedic traditions stemmed from childhood, although he belonged to a moderate religious background. However, his interest in astrological studies began much later. He began his astrological mentorship and studies under the tutelage of his guru, Sri Muthuvijayan Ilango. Inspired by Vedic literatures, Maharishi Parashara and Dr. B.V. Raman, he has spent time studying astrology and the laws of karma in his personal time to get answers to questions he had from studying other Vedic scriptures and concepts such as Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Garuda Purana, and Markandeya Purana. In his personal life, he has a master's degree in business administration and has worked in a well known MLC for more than 7 years. So, his interest in astrology started after encountering life challenges for a long period of time without answers. As a spiritualist who was confined only to devotion towards divinity without a parallel taste for astrology, he later developed a newfound interest in the subject when it answered his otherwise unanswered questions about Vedic traditions. Ever since then, he has practiced astrological analysis and regular study of astrological works. You can reach out to him, and I will put his email address on the chat. If you spend little time with Karthik, you will understand that he's probably one of the most curious beings that you've ever seen. And I'm pretty sure he's going to rub all of us with that. So thanks, Karthik. Now it's yours.
Okay, please share my screen and thank you so much for that introduction, Ashwin. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending on the time zone you're at right now. Today, I'd be talking about Swapna Shastra, and I'd like to begin this session with a question that I myself will be answering. Uh, to begin with, as a food for thought, what is Swapna Shastra and where does it fall in Vedic astrology? Swapna simply means dream and Shastra means knowledge. In the religious context, Shastra actually means religious scriptures, but in a more the context that's more relevant here, it simply means knowledge. So Swapna Shastra means knowledge about dreams. And to go into the second part of the question, where does it fall in Vedic astrology? As anybody who's aware about the basics of Vedic astrology is divided into 6 branches called as Shadanga. Anga means limbs or organs, or simply branches. And those angas are Ganita, Gola, Jataka, Muhurta, Nimitta, and Prashna. And Ganita is more of mathematical calculations. Gola is spherical astronomy that is relevant to Vedic astrology. Jataka is birth chart analysis and predictions based on that. Muhurta is auspicious timing that is picked out of the Vedic calendar with few other factors from futuristic chart to commence good activities. But my interest after I ran through some of these was Nimitta and Prashna. When I ran through it, initially it seemed a little, I was taken aback a little bit because most of our forms of astrology highly depended on logic and logical analysis, while Nimitta depended more on intuitions, omens, and signs in our environment, sort of the signs given by the universe. So, Prashna and Nimitta are very closely overlapping with each other. And so, my topic for today falls under what we call as Prashna Marga, which employs a lot of Nimitta in it. However, all these branches are overlapping with each other, of course, and they are dependent on each other. However, Prashnamarga and Nimitta are even uh, closely tied. Now, when it comes to Nimitta, it becomes very important because here we are not directly looking at planets, but the after effects of planets. So, in the world around us and the environment around us, there may be a lot of activities going on, but sometimes some of the activities have a deeper meaning more than just being coincidences. And that's what Nimitta Shastra is about, where nature becomes your astrologer and gives you predictions. And if you know how to identify them, you'd know that you have an astrologer around you all the time. And Prashna Marga is the main branch under which Swapna Shastra falls under. And I'd have to talk a little bit about Prashna Marga before I dive into my main topic as a bigger picture overview. So I'd be doing that now. But few points to note before I do that is my talk is given in a nutshell at this point of time, and I apologize. And if anybody has any questions later, you can always reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me on email. And uh, the second point I would want to mention is my talk is based out of a 400-year-old Sanskrit text, which is itself called as Prashnamarga. And some of the sequences and anecdotes and references that I'd be talking about is from that time. And it is for us to decide the meaning behind those sequences, anecdotes, and references and try to transcreate contemporary relevance and contemporary counterparts where it's relevant. So I'm not saying that all of the sequences or anecdotes or objects or anything that we encounter is totally irrelevant. There is an overlap with what is contemporary, but there may be some things that are just symbolic to the day and we need to make meaning out of it where relevant. So, diving into Prashnamarga, what is Prashnamarga? Prashna simply means questions, and Marga means a road or a path. So, Prashnamarga means a path of question. Now, the question arises, why are we calling this branch Prashna Marga while any client or seeker who approaches an astrologer is really asking questions and we are answering those questions for them? There is a specific reason for it. There are actually plenty, but the most widely, the main reason for this happens to be that the chart that we are drafting to answer queries for a client is based on when they would pose the question. So, ideally, when we are making predictions of anything, we are looking at the birth time, date, or place of a native, or maybe of a country, or of a time. And when we are trying to set muhurta, we are looking at the calendar and trying to set a futuristic date and looking at planetary positions. But here, The chart is based out of the birth of a question coming out from the seeker, and the astrologer involved would note the date, time, and location of the question that is posed by the seeker and then draft the chart. And that is the reason this is called as Prashna Marga or the route of questions. This is a branch of astrology where intuition leads and logic just supports. While we see that in other branches, it is the logic that usually leads in, for the most part of it, mathematics, planetary placements and analysis, and it is the intuition and omens that take the back seat. However, Prashna Marga is not devoid of logic or logical analysis and planetary analysis. That is also a major part of Prashna, but it's the intuition and omens that largely occupies this subject more than anything else. So, the author, in great detail, emphasizes on certain type of qualification or lifestyle the astrologer who's employing this needs to lead, and that goes in great detail. So, another specialty of this branch is that it employs Aruda Lagna. I think Gary was also talking about Aruda Lagna in the previous segment, and that becomes a very important factor for the Prashna chart. However, just to mention this, in our regular um, uh, birth chart analysis, there's a way to calculate the Aruda Lagna, which is a very simple calculation. But in this branch of astrology, there are alternative methods given by the author, and that is more intuitive and depends on um, mm, the intuitive and the omen based decisions to be made to select the Aruda Lagna rather than it being based out of a calculation. So, uh, to talk about Prashna Marga, before I dive into Swapna Shastra, the scope of Prashna Marga is plenty, and I have listed a lot of scope here. But due to time constraints, I might not be able to go into each of it in detail. So I'd like to touch on few topics. My main topic being dream interpretation, but Prashna can be useful for especially useful in two main areas. One was to find lost objects and especially during theft. Or this was mostly very popular in the older times when technology was not very advanced, and it was very difficult to, especially there were times where even people may be missing from home, or there could be domestic animals missing from home, or pets that run away. All these questions could be handled with Prashna in utmost detail if the astrologer happens to follow, certain guidelines and lifestyle. And a unique feature of Prashna is it can answer very, very specific questions. So our birth chart is really a generic long-term overview of a person's life trajectory. But Prashna is usually a zoom into it in the for the current situation. And Prashna also becomes useful in cases where people may not have a birth chart. They may not know their birth time or birth details. So there too, it's very useful. However, I just want to give a small example here and then directly go into dream interpretations. In Prashna chart, suppose there's a question related to marriage for a native, and if the question happens to be When is the ideal time that I'd be getting married? It's according to Vedic astrology, you can use the birth chart, denote dasha, look at dasha bhuktis, planetary placements, transits, maybe Astaka Varga, and so on and so forth, and give a fair estimate on when they can get married. But if the question is of this type, where, say, somebody says, I'm interested in getting married to a person, or I'm interested to date a person, and this person happens to be my friend, and I don't know what is on their mind, and I'd like to approach them, but because they're my friend, I'm very scared that it may make it awkward later and I would spoil the friendship. So, what is the best course of action and what may be the likely outcome? This question may be very challenging to be answered looking at a birth chart, and that's where a Prashna chart and a Prashna the topic of Prashna can greatly help in giving advice from an astrological purview on what could be the likely outcome and what does the omen say about this. Similar goes for any other area of life like career, finance, health, lost objects, hidden matter, so on and so forth. Today, my topic happens to be dream interpretation, so I'd dive deep into that. Now, the question arises, how do we interpret dreams seen during sleep? When we say out the word dream, a dream can mean two things in a literal sense and in a more symbolic sense. Symbolic sense, it would just mean aspirations and ambitions one may have in their wake life. But in the literal sense, it simply means that what we see during sleep, the visuals, the sounds, that happens in our mind. And that is what we are trying to interpret here. So, in order to do that, a Prashna chart needs to be drawn. And I really apologize right now. I would have loved to take you through how to draft a Prashna chart. There's 101 protocols, and this is just a nutshell infographic, but it gets deeper and detailed. But again, due to time constraints, I'll have to skip this portion. However, for dream interpretation, drafting a chart is not really necessary, but it gives a greater confirmation and sort of the goodwill increases. So, drafting a Prashna chart becomes important. And also, for certain types of analysis, a Prashna chart would be very important. And also, it is not just dream interpretation where the Prashna chart is relevant, but this procedure is relevant across all the scopes of where Prashna can answer from my earlier slide that I took you through. Okay, so diving into Swapna Shastra, let us talk about the scope of dream interpretation. Here, there are five areas where dream interpretation has its scope. One is finding the nature of dreams, then finding the results of dreams. What are the different kinds of dreams and what may be their indicators? The cause of why one would have a dream and timing of experiencing the results, if at all there is going to be a result. And I'd be talking about this in a very great detail right now. So now, what surprised me when I first came across this beautiful topic was the author talked about determining whether the native had a dream and what may be the nature of the dream. And my first question was, why would I want to do that? Because if somebody is coming to me for dream interpretation, they're already telling me they had a dream, and they're also describing what was the dream. So, what is the why would I require to do this? But later I found out that there may be unique situation case by case where the seeker may have approached you for a different purpose or different query, and for you to have an idea whether they had a dream may be important, or there may be somebody on behalf of a seeker who might have approached you. And especially in the times where communication was scarce, 400 years back, the author has mentioned a method where there couldn't be a back and forth with a native and somebody representing them. That's also one reason. And case by case, it might be very useful to be able to find out whether a person had a dream without having to ask them. And even when it comes to the nature of the dream, there are similar reasons why it could be useful. So I'd be talking about that method first and then go into different scopes of where dream interpretation works. Here, okay. So this is a South Indian chart, and simply put, the method to find out whether somebody had a dream is after you draft a Prashna chart, what and the ascendant is fixed, and it's a little complicated, not complicated, I would say it's sort of a headache to fix the ascendant because you'll have to look at four different houses and choose the stronger house to be the first house. But once that is done and you have fixed the ascendant, if the sun occupies the ascendant, whichever the ascendant happens to be, it can be inferred that the native had a dream previous night. And so it is if moon aspects the ascendant, or if the moon happens to aspect the seventh from the fixed ascendant, or if the ascendant happens to be the uh, a sign of the sun, which is Leo. And some, as per popular belief, and this is not as per the author, Aries and Sagittarius too can be taken as, if they are ascendant, they can be taken as influences to infer if the native had a dream the previous night. So, this is the method to determine whether the native had a dream previous night. And then the author gives a series of objects, people, or situations that are associated with the planets. And when I was going through them, I was surprised that conventionally, whether it's Vedic astrology or popularly across different traditions of astrology, the conventional objects mentioned that are associated with planets and the associations made here has slight discrepancies. Like, for example, gold is usually associated with the sun in conventional Vedic astrology, and pearls are usually associated with the moon. But here, the author has associated with them with Mars, and that was surprising to me. And women are usually associated with Venus, but here women are associated with the moon, at least in Vedic astrology, to the best of my knowledge. And I apologize if in any other genre of astrology, if women are associated with moon too. And then so is it with flowers, popularly with Venus, and Watery surfaces, lakes, and seas are usually associated with the moon. But here there was a slight discrepancy, and initially I thought it was an error. But later I found out that it's not an error, and all these associations are very specific to Swapna Shastra. And the conventional associations are more of, the generic associations. And so this is very contextual here. Okay, so any of these planets occurring in the ascendant would mean that uh, the native would have seen these objects, people, or situations in their dream. And if there are more than one planet, it means they have seen multiple objects or people in the dream, and maybe in sequence, depending on how the planets are placed in the ascendant. Also, if there is inimical planetary relations, or if there's a planetary fight happening in the ascendant, it could be inferred that the native's dream was not that pleasant. It could have even been a nightmare. And if there's a combustion taking place in the ascendant, it could be inferred that the dream was disjointed, unclear, or fragmented. The native also talks about the duration of the dream. Ideally, if moon occupies the ascendant, whatever the ascendant happens to be, he says the dream would have lasted for a few kshana. In Sanskrit, kshana means it's more symbolic here. It means few microseconds or few seconds, but symbolically it's going to say that the dream was very short, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But in case that's not the case and the ascendant lord was associated with any of the other planets, the dream could have been very long. And surprisingly, if the ascendant lord, if it's not moon itself, and was associated with the moon somehow, surprisingly, the dream would be very long. I think the longest. It says 10 hours here. But if the moon had occupied the ascendant, it was for only a few seconds. So with the sun, it's 6 hours. With Mars, it's seven, and so on and so forth. So just as we have planetary objects that are associated with, sorry, the objects in real time that are associated with the planets. The author also gives a list of um, objects, people, and anecdotes that are associated with zodiac signs, which I talk about now. Aries represents temples or religious places. Taurus represents divine beings. Gemini represents scholars and saints. Cancer represents water containing plant life, grass cut from earth, etc. Leo represents life on hills. Kanya represents cohabitation with women. Libra with gold merchants and those in power. Scorpio represents beetles, poisons, and horses, ideally insects, poison, and horses. Horse. Sagittarius represents barks of trees, flowers, and fruits. Capricorn with men and women together. Aquarius with glass, ideally with a mirror, but you can consider other glass too. Uh, Across text, it mirror is more associated with Aquarius, and so does the author state, but glass in general, you can say. Pisces with gold and oceans. Now, we'd go into a category of dreams that represent why dreams occur. And this topic or this scope to which dream interpretations extend to is is a very very important topic to be able to interpret the dreams one may have. And however, so far we saw that the chart or the Prashna chart becomes very important, but there is a parallel method where you wouldn't require the chart, but it's good to have the chart sort of to be more detailed and to also have a clearer view. But really, it may not be necessary. You can have an idea about what the prediction may be from the dream one has even without a chart. And that's the, you know, upside to dream interpretation. So here, talking about the category, there are seven categories of dreams. And the first five categories, because of which a dream occurs, really don't indicate anything futuristic. They are not astrological predictions. They were just dreams that happened uh, as a psychological conflict resolution in the mind. But the sixth and seventh are predictive by nature. It's nature's way of giving you some omen or sign that something is coming in the future. So, to talk about the first five, if one had a dream because of what one witnessed in one's life visually, that is called as drishta, then that kind of dream is not going to manifest. If it was because of what one heard in their wake life, that is not going to manifest. Because of what one tasted, touched, or smelled in one's wake life, if one is going to have a dream, it's just a psychological conflict resolution sort of a dream, and that will not have any sort of indications of the future. And the fourth is called prarthita, and prarthita simply means dreams occurring because of what one prayed for. And by what one prayed for, here we are really not talking about devotion, but prayers offered for wishes to be fulfilled. And in real time, the wishes could be fulfilled. But if a dream is occurring because of this reason, that dream is not indicative whether the wish is going to be fulfilled or not. The wish, if at all is fulfilled, would be fulfilled because of other factors. And then we have fifth, which is kalpita, which is nothing but dreams occurring in sleep because of daydreaming during wake life, which is because of one's imagination or what one visualized, but not too strongly. These are five areas where dreams usually don't manifest into reality. But in the sixth area, which is called as Bhavija, it's very interesting that the dreams occurring because of this reason may manifest or they may not manifest also. What is Bhavija? Bhavija simply means the mental speculations we do in our head, which is not falling under Prarthita or Kalpita, which means mental speculations that are not wishes or that are not imaginations. Any other mental speculation causing a dream has a 50-50 chance of it being an indicator for a future event. And the seventh one is called doshaja. And this is where it gets interesting. When someone would have a dream because of tridoshas in their body, tridoshas means three fundamental energies, which is largely and in utmost great detail spoken in the field of Ayurveda, which is a field of traditional Vedic medicine in India. Here, the tridoshas usually can occur because of various factors. And what these tridoshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata simply means the air inflow in the body. Pitta means the heat in the body and how that's regulated, and Kapha means the liquid elements, especially water and water mixed liquids in the body. It could be blood or mostly phlegm. If there is imbalance in these things, then dreams occurring because of this can be highly predicting one's future. And why the imbalance happens from a traditional medical purview, Vedic medical purview, it is stated that it can happen because of a bad lifestyle or because of lack of sleep, and more of a scientific reason. But also from an astrological purview, there can be a tridosha in the body because of the planetary transits. And the author also talks about one section which is in India at least, not in the for the modern Indian ear, not a very widely pleasant thing that people would like to talk about, and some people might even brush it off as superstition, which is what we call as occult, dark magic, or black magic. And so the author doesn't have such distinctions to distinguish or discriminate, saying, okay, the tridosha occurring because of medical reasons is scientific. The tridoshas that are stated or claimed to occur because of planetary transits are pseudo-scientific, and the tridoshas that are occurring because of abhichara or black magic is superstitious. He puts them all on the same platform and talks about them equally. Anyway, it's not so much relevant to us on why the tridosha has occurred, but right now we'll talk about how to determine whether a dream one has had is because of these five reasons or because of the last two reasons. So, a simple non-chart based method to describe to determine this is very easy. If a dream occurs during daytime, it simply means that the dream is not going to be effective. It is not indicative of any future prediction. If a dream is forgotten after waking immediately, then the dream is not going to be effective. It's not indicative of anything in the future. So is dreams seen for a very long time or dreams that may occur before midnight. It is not totally untrue that sometimes even dreams that occur before midnight but after sunset could come into effect. But if at all they come into effect, it's going to take a very, very long time before they manifest or their results manifest into reality. Maybe it may take an year or even 2 years or 6 months. It depends. And I'll be talking more about that when I talk about the timing of results. Now, how do we, without a chart, determine what are the most effective dreams and how effective they're going to be? A simple way to know that is dreams that are more closer to the sunrise show that they are more likely to occur. So, early dreams that come early in the morning are in India, it's a very common thing that people almost say, everybody knows this almost, that did you have a dream in the during early hours of the morning? I think you're in a fix. That's sort of a narrative that goes around. But I was surprised that this concept actually comes from Prashna Marga, and it is stated in Sanskrit. I thought it was just a floating superstition that people had come up with. Okay, so if a person happens to sleep again after waking, um, then the effect of the dream would be little. but that doesn't mean that the dream wouldn't manifest at all. So now talking about, okay, so here, if a good dream is followed by a bad dream, the effect of the bad dream is what is going to manifest. That is one other thing that the author talks about. And when it comes to timing and results of the dream, if the dream occurred before midnight, how much time do we have? 20 minutes. I'd have to like rush this part a little bit. I apologize for that. So, if a dream occurs before midnight, the dream may manifest within a year. Closer to the midnight, it may manifest in 6 months. Closer to the midnight, you can gauge the time, reduce the time accordingly. But once midnight has passed and the dream occurs, the dream is going to manifest a little too soon. If at midnight it is going to be 3 months, and 3 hours from midnight, you can cut down the months accordingly for each hour. And if it occurs between 3 in the morning to 6 in the morning, the dream may occur within a month. Again, you can cut down 10 days for each hour. So if it occurs at 5 in the morning or 1 hour before sunrise, you can say that it may occur in 10 days. But if the dream at all occurs during daybreak and the person may wake up, the author goes on to say the dream will occur on the same day, but keeping a leverage or benefit of doubt, it may occur within 3 days to 5 days or within a week. Going to my next section, and this is my most important, favorite section. The author gives few specific and very detailed anecdotes of few dreams, which becomes very useful as guidelines for us to gauge other dreams that are more contemporary to this day and age. So these anecdotes are widely divided into two categories. One category is the dreams giving negative results. The other one is dreams giving positive results. I'd like to talk about the negative results first because, and I don't want to panic anyone. So please note that anything that I'd be talking about, if you at all have a similar dream, please approach a Prashna astrologer or any astrologer, or use the other gauging factors before you come to conclusions on what may be coming. And I'm talking about the positive results a little later because I want to end my talk on a positive note. So, going forward to the next slide, dreams giving negative results, especially dreams indicating obstacles, loss, illness, humiliation, and suffering. If birds build nest on one's forehead, this something that cracks me up a little bit. Not the negative result part, but something like this happening to a person. Then it means that negative results would follow, and it would be something on this, on these lines. If one is getting shaved in a dream, encircled by crows or eagles, surrounded by ghosts, vampires, or similar beings, surrounded by who might be social violators in the given region and in the given day and age, getting lost in a bypath filled with creepers, grass, bamboos, and thorny bushes, lying down in a graveyard, crematorium, or deeper pits, falling on dust or ash, slipping on watery surfaces, wells, tanks, or swampy areas, being dragged down by water currents, skin and legs getting dried in a dream, feeling highly elated and maybe even arrogant, and if the dreamer happens to laugh at angry, respectable people like elders or seniors or somebody who's respected by the society, then too it can indicate something negative. And in the next section, the author even goes on to say that there might be greater negative result like death like suffering. He even goes on to say death in some cases, but I'm not going to, stretch my. I don't think that's going to happen because in the current day and age, uh, 400 years back, medical science and safety measures were not so well developed, so that could have occurred. In current days, it could be something like a death like suffering, or it could be a mental suffering that is more like a death like suffering. And I've seen that happen, and it wouldn't actually be death. If a dreamer sings, dances, plays on musical instruments, it can mean that something negative may happen. Decorated with oneself with red flowers or clothes. Here, I have extra comments. Any red flowers or clothes are not so much of a positive thing described in Swapna Shastra. Across Swapna Shastra, wherever there are anecdotes. So, especially red flowers or a garden filled with red plants, or wearing red clothes, or being in a red room that is painted red, all these things fall under this. Getting old age in a dream, putting on weight in a dream, smearing one's body with oil, and getting married. This one cracks me up a lot. uh, Eats, cook food and dishes, lifting butter or ghee. Ghee is clarified butter when you cook butter for a longer period. Even today in India, ghee is a very popular ingredient used in food. And if one happens to be drinking liquor, I know that there might be a lot of party freaks out there, but if they're party freaks in their dream also, it's never a good thing. In real life, I mean, it's a good thing for some people, it's not so much for some people, but in a dream, it's not good for anyone. Okay, so it's if somebody happens to throw up in a dream, vomits, then that's also a very bad indicator. Gets iron and gold in the dream, surprisingly gold here, gets defeated in a fight or an argument, gets imprisoned, meets with accidents, or loses footwear. All these things can indicate sorrow, loss, disease, separation, or even threat to life. The author goes on to give few more anecdotes. I just have 10 more minutes, so I'm not going to. I have one more slide for positive results, so I'm just going to, uh, touch the surfaces here. If land, stars, planets, teeth, objects are seen in a dream, or if objects of divinity or sculptures of deities fall down or get destroyed, then it means to say that there would be negative results. Hills tumbling down, entering into a forest filled with red flowers again, or place of sinful acts, entering a dark abyss, lying down in a burning ghat. Ghat in India means a series of steps leading down to a river or a lake or a mountain pass or a mountain range. So, if one happens to be lying on one of the steps or maybe the lower step of any such geographies, then it's never a good thing. Falling down from hilltops or housetops, fishing alone, seeing people with earthy colored robes, or if one spots naked people and people with bloodshot eyes, or if one spots a witch in a dream, then those things can indicate negative results. Here, one pattern I saw throughout this is Any dream that shows going down or falling can indicate negative results, and any dream that shows upward movement of some sort indicates positive. And if there are both, you can we can gauge a mixed result out of it. Now, talking about positive results, uh, if a person happens to dream of another person having alcohol, that's a very good thing. If if the dreamer himself is consuming alcohol, negative result. If somebody else is consuming alcohol and he's a witness, then it can mean that one may receive wealth. And if that person happens to be highly spiritual or religious, it can mean that they would receive a lot of religious knowledge or spiritual knowledge. Same goes with someone consuming blood. Disgusting sight, I do understand, but if it's in a dream, it is always indicative of something very positive, like earning wealth or getting knowledge. If a common man would see a king, elephant, horse, oxen, cow, or a sick man, it means that their desires and wishes would get fulfilled. But if somebody who happens to be in a political space and in the uh, uh, earlier times, 400 years back, or maybe even before that, if somebody belonged to a royal family, if they happen to see these objects, it means that they would become a political leader in high ranking or become the king, depending on the uh, where they're placed currently. If a person obtains these objects, these are very traditional objects in India. Even in current times, in the more religious spaces, they are used as is. But you can also find modern counterparts. For example, a sandal paste can also mean any cosmetic that is pure in nature and is a cooling agent and is fragrant. And a conch, which is considered a very, very divine object in Indian religious tradition, represent two things. Any divine object associated with any religion that also represents fortune, because conch represents goddess Lakshmi, and the conch is also symbol of Vishnu. It's a it's a it's a gadget that Vishnu carries, Lord Vishnu carries. Gadget is the wrong word. I apologize, but it's an article. Pearl remains pearl. Beetle leaves can represent mouth freshness in the current context. Flowers, other than red flowers, can mean good results would follow, especially flowers that are fragrant. And wealth, other than gold, or sometimes this is debatable. It's actually this is where a Prashna chart would be useful. Whether obtaining gold in form of wealth is a negative thing or a positive thing, because earlier we did see that gold was also it is a negative indicator. But any other form of wealth, like gold coins or money or becoming rich, good results follow. Bitten by insects or leech, not a pleasant experience in real life, but it is something you would like to wish for happen in a dream. It is going to promise wealth, and those who wish to have children, it's going to promise children. Entering a terrace would make one a king, according to the author. And in the experience of many people that I consulted, they also say that it's not necessary that they would become a king, but they might become an authority figure in their desired field as well, even if they were from a humble background or a background that was not very supportive of getting into that position. If one happens to eat sweets that are made of milk in a dirty plate in the middle of a pond or a water source, one may become a learned priest. Here it's specific to what kind of sweet and what the dirty plate is going to be. It's a dirty lotus leaf. Lotus, however, and the lotus leaf is religiously considered a very, very sacred, uh, sacred object. However, this can extend to any dirty plate, but specifically lotus leaf being taken literally can be useful to make this prediction. If one would witness a rooster or a balaka bird is ideally a crane or a white heron. In the Western world, you can say a seagull could be its counterpart, or a pelican, maybe, or any white bird that eats fish from water sources and lives near beaches or lakes and are sufficiently huge. When one witnesses these things, it would mean that one may get a spouse who has endearing words or similar qualifications. If a sick person sees the globes of sun and the moon, it means that they would recover from sickness and become wealthy later and enjoy good health. And if the sick person sees the following in the dream, it indicates that they become prosperous. And those items are blazing fire, flowers, fruits, a mirror, rubies, pot of yogurt or curd, rice, and here rice also means staple food of that location. So, in case the staple food of the location happens to be sandwiches, or in the northern part of India, it happens to be what we call as roti, which is a wheat uh, pan bread sort of a, a dish, then one happens to, you can infer that they may become prosperous. And so it is with milk. So I have finished 4 minutes early, um, and I'd be happy to take any questions right now. And I'm done with the session ends here. So thank you so much for listening to my talk, and I do apologize that I had to rush through few things and skip a few things. But if you at all have questions and I'm not able to answer them right now, you can always reach out to me. And you can go through this recording when it's uploaded for the bits that might have missed out and didn't explain in detail, and go through that slide as well.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karthik. This was a fascinating ride. I think everyone enjoyed it. I was just kind of wondering if I had any dreams that could lead to something bad. Uh, Also, a reminder that people should sleep early so that their dreams don't occur very late in the morning after the sun rises. So, yeah, really amazing. Uh,
Thank you.
Uh, so there's a lot of praises, but there are no questions. I think it was a uh, very wonderful. Anyway, it was very clear and yeah. Christina is saying that she definitely did not sleep through this session on dream interpretations. Great visuals as well. Yeah, Meghna is also saying that lovely visuals.
Thank you so much, all of you. And thank you so much for the opportunity to give this talk. I'd like to especially thank Ashwin and my guru, Sri Muthuvijayan Elengo sir, for being so supportive throughout these years and for also giving me an opportunity to give this talk today. And all of the participants and speakers, really enjoyed all of your sessions. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Karthik. A lot to take away from this talk. So we finished a little early, just 1 minute early. But if anyone has any thoughts,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karthik. That's a proud moment for a teacher. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
If you say of sharing the experience, I can share one. I had one such, last year on 20th of June, I happened to have this kind of dream early in the morning about my first husband who was in India, and I saw him holding his hands and crying before me. And I'm remarried, so my husband out here in US, he said that you don't have to get up. And with that, I got up, and he was taking the laundry, and I went behind him, and I said that, see, I saw my first husband, Anil Singh. We all were together in the university, so he knew him very well. And then he said that, yeah, he was your first husband, so you must have seen him. There is nothing new about it. And you won't believe, just after 3 days, that man passed away. And it was actually not a very, I did not carried forward any negative thought about him. But I saw myself crying before him, and he was standing with folding hands and begging and saying that everything is over now. Please forgive me. Everything is over now. And I was crying, and I was telling him, you did this, you did that, so many complaints. And that was, it was on Friday when I saw it, and Tuesday I got the news that he passed away. And later on, I went there with my 2 children in December, with my grown-up children, and then people over there, the relatives, who are very, 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 very good, nurture good relationship with me. They all came, and then my earlier sister-in-law, she brought a paper, and she said that he had written your date of birth, my son's date of birth, my daughter's date of birth, and he had your pictures there. So yeah, at the last moment, it was you all in his mind. So this was a morning dream at about, it was somewhere around 7:30 out here. So I got my answer now, the time was exact. And the second one was about my father, he was in ICU. That was in 2003. And I was with him for past 20 days. And one of my students' father was an orthopedic surgeon. He had arranged a bed for me in the post-operative hall. And I used to rest over there. I used to be there with my father all through, and he was in ICU for about 17 days. On the 17th day, or 17th day's previous night, somebody was singing a song, Magiyan se na jana, khatiyan se na khatmal na jana, and they looked at me as if every day this lady comes back and sleeps over here. So I had a odd thought. At about 2 o'clock, somehow I could sleep, and then 2 o'clock I saw my father. I saw myself, and I woke up and I sat in the bed. And my sister was there. Her head was on the other side. Mine was on a different side. And then I thought of waking her up, because I saw my father, and he's saying that this was not the time for. I was crying and telling Papa, come back, let's go home. And he said, no, this is not the time to go home. What would I do? And he was in a hurry. I was trembling with fear. What am I seeing? As if somebody is forcing me to see a movie. And then he said that, what is the point of coming back in this frail body, जर्जर शरीर में आके क्या करना है? And बेटा, अभी तो मैं अर्जी लगाए बैठा हूं कि अभी तो मेरा आने का समय ही नहीं था, बस अब ये दरवाजा खुलेगा और ये जजमेंट देंगे. This is what he said in Hindi. And then बस अपनी माँ का ध्यान रख लेना. And the dream was over. And for 5 o'clock in the morning, somebody called me from ICU that there's a massive cardiac arrest, come over here immediately. So I went running there, and as if I was not in myself. I instructed my sister Gangajal Nikalo, and I was not in my own self. And then she put, and I didn't know that she's carrying Gangajal. And then she put Gangajal in his mouth, and after that I said, Tulsi hai? So she just said, nodded, and she said, nahi hai. Then we came, the doctor said that you go out, because he was, and then said, ruk jao. I immediately said, ruko, because they were thumping his chest. So, I know somebody else was giving directions to me to speak all this. Ruk jao, Gangajal nikalo, Om Sai Ram, Om Sai Ram. These were the 3 words, 3 or 4 sentences which I uttered. And this was some kind of trance experience which I've never had after that. That was one and only experience which I still treasure, and in which he had given me all the instructions. So this is, I really don't know how to explain it. But many things have been explained by you. Thank you so much. And it was a blessing to listen to this talk of yours.
Thanks. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And sorry you had that experience on a personal note. But yes, like you said, early morning dreams, while interpreting dreams, whatever you shared, they somewhat you can relate to them based on the anecdotes that the author had given. So thank you so much for sharing your real-time experiences with that.
Thank you for sharing. It was intense.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Karthik, again for a very wonderful talk.